Welcome to Books for Success. Today, we're delving into the wisdom within 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do, 2014, explains how to develop great mental strength by taking control of your emotions, thoughts, and actions. With useful tips, inspiring examples, and practical solutions, this book will help you overcome your fears and start living life to the fullest. Who's it for? 1. People struggling in the face of their own failures and peers' success. 2. Parents who can't calmly communicate with their children. 3. Anyone who needs extra encouragement to live out their dreams. Before we begin, subscribe and ring the bell for notifications if you want to keep receiving the knowledge of book summaries about health, wealth, love, psychology, and much more. Don't be shy about dropping your book suggestions for us to summarize. Also, you can use this video as an audiobook summary. Let's grow and succeed together. Overcome what's holding you back and live the life you dream of. In the upcoming 13 sections, you'll learn about 13 real-life examples of 13 different bad habits and how those bad habits were replaced by better ones. In the process, you'll stock up your personal toolbox for life's notorious hardships. So let's get started. Mentally strong people replace self-pity with gratitude. One day, Amy Morin witnessed a minor accident in a supermarket parking lot. Two cars were backing up and bumped into each other. Morin observed the two drivers' reactions, and she noticed something interesting. Although both drivers had experienced the same accident, their reactions were drastically different. The first driver got out of the car and seemed relieved that no one was seriously hurt. He felt grateful that the accident did not lead to a severe injury. The second driver, on the other hand, felt unlucky and frustrated. He complained, asking why such things always happened to him. So, what's the point? Well, the second driver's reaction is a perfect example of a behavior that mentally strong people do not exhibit: self-pity. People who pity themselves tend to think their problems are more significant than they are. They complain about life being unfair and will readily hand you a list of all the things that went wrong instead of focusing on the positive. This can be quite self-destructive because it trains your mind to focus on the negatives and makes you more miserable. Meanwhile, all the good luck and positive experiences go unnoticed. So, how can you stop feeling sorry for yourself? The most effective remedy is gratitude. When you feel like bad things always happen to you, take a moment to stop and write down a list of the good things that have happened to you. You can even keep a gratitude journal and write down at least one thing you are grateful for every day. Saying it out loud to the people around you can also help. Eventually, you might find yourself feeling grateful for minor accidents instead of complaining about them, bringing you one step closer to becoming a mentally strong person. Mentally strong people hold on to their power and forgive others. Let's meet Lauren, a loving mother of two. She nearly had a picture-perfect family life if it wasn't for one thing: her mother-in-law. Lauren found her overbearing. Not only would she come over unannounced, but she constantly criticized Lauren's parenting style and even made nasty comments about her weight. Lauren always kept a polite smile on the outside but was boiling on the inside. And it wasn't only that her mother-in-law occupied precious family time. Lauren also found herself ruminating and complaining about her at least several hours per week. Clearly, something was wrong. This brings us to the second habit that mentally strong people don't do. They don't let other people have power over them. This was the core of Lauren's problem. Because she was afraid of speaking up, she let her mother-in-law control how she felt and behaved. There are many ways in which this habit can manifest. If you're susceptible to other people's criticism, if you let other people make you angry, if other people can guilt you into doing something you don't want to do, it's a sign that you give others power over you. So, how do you take back control over your life? Let's take another look at Lauren. After she realized how much time and energy she spent complaining about her mother-in-law, she sat down with her husband. They decided to set respectful but clear and healthy boundaries. So they had a talk with her. They told her that instead of her dropping by unannounced, they would regularly invite her for dinner. They also demanded that she stop criticizing Lauren's parenting style. In the beginning, it was hard for her mother-in-law to adapt, but she managed. And Lauren got back control over her family, home, and her life. Mentally strong people are always ready to embrace change. Richard was frustrated. He had just been diagnosed with diabetes, and his doctor told him he was 75 pounds overweight. So he felt like he needed to make a change, which was easier said than done. He made a pledge to abstain from any sort of junk food. He even cleared his shelves of all the cookies and sugary drinks. He signed up for the gym. All of this sounded like a good plan on paper. In real life, though, he soon found himself snacking in front of the TV instead of exercising. Despite all the best intentions, he didn't lose a single pound. Let's face it, making a change is difficult. But if you lack the mental strength, it's easy to shy away from it. But this comes at a heavy price. Without change, you can feel like you're stuck while others are outgrowing you. So, how do mentally strong people approach change? First and foremost, they avoid the single biggest pitfall: overwhelming yourself with too much change at once. This is what happened with Richard. His methods were just too radical, too unrealistic. He set himself up for failure. Instead, try these 2 tips. First, break down your ambition into smaller, more reachable goals. Replace radical change with incremental change. This is what Richard learned to do. Instead of wanting to lose 75 pounds at once, he now strived to lose 5 pounds as a first step. And secondly, make a plan. This means you craft concrete action steps that are easy to follow. For example, Richard started a food journal to keep track of his eating and prepared lunch instead of eating out. He planned out 3 gym visits per week in advance, and for the other days, he made a pledge to go for a short walk with his family after dinner. So now we know how mentally strong people handle change. They avoid the scary all-or-nothing change. And instead, they craft smaller and more realistic goals and attach concrete actions to it that they can do daily. You can make change so unscary that shying away from it is simply not an option anymore. Mentally strong people don't get distracted by things they can't control. One day, James wanted to spend an afternoon watching a whale with his daughter. Such dates had become a rare and cherished occasion. After the divorce from his wife, Carmen, she was granted primary custody, while James was only allowed to see her on Wednesdays and weekends. To make things even more complicated, the divorced parents were competing over their daughter's favor, trying to trump one another with gifts and fun activities. So when he learned from his daughter that her mom had taken her on a whale-watching trip just the week prior, supposedly to ruin their whale-watching trip, James was infuriated. Instead of enjoying the rare quality time with his daughter, he sent angry text messages to his ex-wife. The afternoon was ruined. So, what exactly are we witnessing here? It's this: James got unnecessarily upset about something that was outside his control. But like most people, James loves to have full control over the situation. This includes telling people what and what not to do. But this just made the situation worse, spoiling the already rare quality time with his daughter. Mentally strong people, on the other hand, develop a balanced sense of control. They have a good grip on what they can and cannot control and, therefore, invest their time and energy more wisely. The first step here is clear. You need to acknowledge that there are some things you won't be able to change. For example, you won't be able to force your child to be an A student. You can't force people to follow your advice, and you cannot control illnesses or the weather. Once you've accepted that some things are out of your control, you can focus on what's actually in your sphere of influence. And then you make the best out of the circumstances. Which brings us back to James. Soon, he realized he wouldn't be able to change his ex-wife, and he also had no power over how she spent her time with their daughter. What he could do is make the best out of his time with his daughter. So, instead of complaining or dragging his ex-wife to court over custody, he learned to be more present and enjoy every bit of time he gets to have with his daughter. Always wanting to please others doesn't work, and being ready to sometimes displease makes you stronger. Certainly, here's the rewritten text with any necessary corrections. Let's talk about Megan. Megan had a relatable problem. She felt constantly stressed due to the numerous to-dos that seemed to pour in from all sides. Church members asked her to quickly bake muffins for Sunday service, her sister needed her as a babysitter, and her cousin always came over with some last-minute favor to ask. Soon, it became clear that Megan's stress had a particular reason. She had a hard time saying no. In other words, she was a people pleaser. Being nice is great, but it can become a problem if you are too nice. People who tend to be too nice can be easily taken advantage of. Since they hate to disagree, they would rather say yes than risk a conflict. Not only are they constantly concerned about what other people think about them, but they will also go to great lengths to change their behavior so that they appear more likable, often at the expense of their own desires and wishes. It's not hard to guess what's wrong with this sort of behavior. If you always focus on other people's needs, you're not going to get your own needs met. Not only is it extremely stressful, but it can also damage your relationships. That's what happened with Megan. Because she always said yes to her cousin's short-term requests, she grew frustrated and behaved irritably toward her own family. Sometimes, she'd even miss dinner or couldn't put her kids to bed. So, if you find yourself to be an overly agreeable person, what can you do? Here are 2 tips. Tip number 1 is that you have to remember one thing. It's not your job to make everybody happy all the time. It's okay if someone else feels mad or upset. It's not the end of the world. They're grown-ups and they learned how to cope with negative emotions, just as you did. Tip number 2 is a rather practical one. If someone asks you for a favor, take some time before you say yes or no. This is actually what the author told Megan. Whenever someone asked her for something, she felt pressured and automatically said yes, even if she didn't want to. So Morin gave her a script, something she could easily respond with in those situations. For example, when someone asked her for a favor, she said something like this: "Thanks for asking. Let me check my calendar, and then I'll get back to you in a bit." This way, she bought herself some time, which made it easier for her to say this small but powerful word with 2 letters, no. Mentally strong people are not afraid of taking calculated risks. When Dale shared his dream of opening his own furniture store with his wife, she responded with skepticism. She did not understand why he would give up his secure job as a high school teacher for such a risky endeavor. Despite her doubts, Dale continued to work in the same job, but the more he tried to neglect his true passion, the more frustrated and depressed he became. He felt stuck and was unsure of what to do next. Let's take a closer look at how mentally strong individuals handle risk-taking, as most people are typically averse to it. They are often afraid of making certain decisions and tend to entertain worst-case scenarios in their minds. However, mentally strong people approach risks differently. They take calculated risks by following 2 steps. First, they get a full and realistic understanding of the potential dangers and benefits involved. They ask themselves questions like, what is the worst thing that can happen? And, what is the best thing that can happen? Second, they find a way to adjust the risks involved appropriately. Too many people tend to approach life decisions with an all-or-nothing attitude, but there is a middle way. Mentally strong individuals recognize this and take appropriate steps to reduce risk. Dale followed this approach and realized that he did not have to choose between his stable job and his dream. He could start his furniture shop on a part-time basis, working on evenings and weekends, and sell his creations online. If he received enough interest, he could open a storefront later on. This realization improved his mood, and he felt better knowing that he had taken a calculated risk. Coming to terms with the past makes you stronger, but it takes concrete steps to do so. Gloria's relationship with her 28-year-old daughter was more than difficult. It became clear to Gloria that her daughter was stuck in a loop of self-destructive behavior, constantly switching boyfriends, not holding down a job, and moving back in with her. But instead of saying anything, she even enabled it with her well-meaning behavior. Why? Because she felt guilt and shame over how she wasn't really there for her daughter when she was younger, so now she wanted to make up for it. In other words, she was so stuck in the past that she couldn't move forward. If there's something we can learn from Gloria's story, it's this: if you want to become mentally stronger, you should stop dwelling on your past. This habit comes in many forms. It can mean you're replaying certain scenes from your past over and over. You're wondering how your life would have turned out if you had taken this one job, or you assume that getting back with your ex-lover will solve all your problems. Yes, a certain amount of retrospective reflection is healthy, but too much of it can be destructive. How do you stop then, you might ask yourself. Here's the trick. Instead of dwelling on your past, you should come to terms with it and then move forward. The first step here is acceptance. You've got to realize that no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to change what has happened. This may also mean that you forgive someone who has inflicted pain on you. And second, move forward. Shift your thoughts onto something new, and do this with intention. When you notice how your thoughts are spiraling back to past events, make an effort to replace those thoughts. For example, start making plans for your next vacation. Even better, come up with new goals for your future. The more you get yourself in the habit of thinking about the future, the harder it will become for your brain to go back to the past. Hence you stop dwelling on it. So far, we've been talking quite a lot about habits. But we haven't really acknowledged that habits can come in many shapes and forms. Take Gloria from the section before. It was her thinking that was problematic since her thoughts were so stuck in the past. This was different from Richard from section number 3, who found himself snacking in front of the TV even though he wanted to lose weight. Here we are talking about habitual behavior. And remember James, who got so upset that his ex-wife took their daughter on a whale-watching trip before he did? Well, his bad habits were all about emotions. The point here is that if you want to develop your mental strength, you need to be aware of these 3 levels of mental strength: thoughts, behavior, and emotions. Some bad habits start out on one level and then have a tendency to spill over. But it also works the other way around. If you start improving one of those 3, it will affect the other 2. They are all intertwined. Mentally strong people avoid repeating the same mistakes, and this requires self-discipline. Let's take a little time machine to a small town in mid-19th century Massachusetts. We're with the businessman Roland Macy, who just launched a dry goods store but made quite a fatal mistake. The location he chose was way too quiet, and he struggled to attract customers as a result. To drum up interest in his fledgling store, Macy organized a large parade through his town that would end up at his shop. Unfortunately, on the day of the parade, it was so blazing hot that nobody turned up. He fell so deep into debt that he had to give up his business. But Macy learned from this experience and vowed not to make the same mistake again. The next time he opened a Macy dry goods store, he chose a prime location in downtown New York. It was a massive hit. The rest is history. Macy's became one of the biggest chain stores in the world and still holds a parade every year just in the fall, to avoid the heat. What Roland Macy did here is another characteristic of mentally strong people. They study and learn from their mistakes so they don't repeat them in the future. To learn from your mistakes the next time something goes wrong, you can take some time to ask yourself the following questions. What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? And what can I do differently next time around? Of course, knowing what you need to do differently and actually doing it are not the same things. This is why, if you want to put a stop to bad habits once and for all, you need to practice self-discipline. Here are 3 simple methods to become a more disciplined person. First, keep your eyes on your goal. By picturing how great it will feel once you've reached it, like how amazing it will feel once you've put the finishing touches on your novel, it will be easier to sit down to write on evenings when you feel like just dropping down in front of the TV. Second, make a list of mistakes you've made in the past that you don't want to repeat. Carry this list with you at all times, and when you feel like you're about to repeat a mistake, take it out and read it to yourself. And third, make it harder to make mistakes. Let's say your goal is to save money for a dream trip, but you always end up spending too much money when you're out with your friends. Before you leave home for an outing, take a small amount of cash out and leave your credit card at home. That way, you're less likely to go on a spending spree. Mentally strong people don't envy other people's success but rather seek to collaborate with them. In case you have ever felt unhappy while scrolling through social media and seeing others' perfect lives, this might be helpful for you. In 2013, researchers conducted a study titled Envy on Facebook, a hidden threat to users' life satisfaction. The study showed that people can feel unhappy and envious when they see other people's successes and happiness. Looking at other people's vacation photos can be particularly hurtful, and even birthday wishes can make individuals feel angry. If you can relate to this, you might be feeling resentment, which mentally strong people avoid. If you think other people are more successful than you, you might feel envious of their good fortune. You might smile politely on the outside, but deep down, you might despise them. For example, if your neighbor shows you his new Tesla, you might feel angry instead of enjoying the garden party. Often, people's resentments stem from their own insecurities. It's effortless to resent other people's accomplishments if you don't know what you want for yourself. For instance, You might envy a friend who's traveling the world for important business trips, but didn't you wish for more family time earlier? So, what is it that you really want? To get rid of resentful emotions, you must first gain clarity about what success and accomplishment mean to you. If your New Year's resolution is to bike more often to work, you wouldn't even want your neighbor's new car, so you can't despise it. Another way to eliminate resentment is by changing your attitude. Life isn't a competition where you have to outperform everyone around you. Instead, try to collaborate. You might be secretly angry about your brother's financial success, but why not ask him for some tips and learn from him? It's challenging to resent someone who's willing to help you out. Mentally strong people don't give up easily, and they are self-compassionate about failure. Today, Thomas Edison is world famous for inventing the light bulb. But did you know that he also came up with contraptions like the electric pen or the so-called ghost machine? If you've never heard of these, don't worry, both were complete failures. And they were far from being Edison's only flops, at least, from our perspective. Edison himself didn't consider these attempts to be failures. Instead, he saw them as learning opportunities, chances to experiment with what worked and what didn't. Each time he failed, he considered himself to be one step closer to succeeding. But, yeah, this is not the common perspective on failure. If you drop out of college or lose an important client, your go-to reaction is not, finally, another learning opportunity. The opposite is true. It often comes with a sense of shame and experience we want to avoid at all costs. As a consequence, some people will stop trying entirely, making it a habit to give up at the faintest sign of hardship. Obviously, giving up is not an option if you want to develop your mental strength. How do you deal with it then? We have 2 tips in store. First, get rid of unhealthy beliefs about success and failure. In the face of resistance, it's easy to make excuses that you're just not talented enough. Well, not true. Science has it that regular practice will trump natural talent. If you just put in enough hours, you'll most likely overtake anyone who doesn't. Same goes for IQ. IQ is a rather lousy predictor of success. Yes, being smart might give you a head start, but perseverance has shown to be way more important when it comes to long-term achievement. Second, self-compassion can be key when you have to face challenging times. More often than not, you are your harshest critic. But being too hard on yourself can result in resignation, falsely believing that you're just not good enough. Instead, try being as compassionate with yourself as you might be with a friend. Nobody is perfect, yourself included. Be kind towards your own weaknesses. That will help you develop a realistic view of what's possible or not. Mentally strong people are comfortable being alone and use meditation to become more resilient. Let's go back to Morin's counseling office. This time, we're joining Vanessa, who has trouble sleeping despite being exhausted from her busy workdays. She finds it hard to turn off her mind, which keeps racing with thoughts and worries about daily situations and upcoming tasks. Vanessa works as a successful real estate agent and is always on the go. When asked by Morin how often she takes time alone to clear her thoughts, Vanessa replied that she never does. While people tend to prioritize social events and activities, being alone and winding down is just as important. Some consider it unproductive, while others feel it's scary and uncomfortable. However, studies show that having alone time can boost mental well-being, life satisfaction, and stress management. Most importantly, it helps recharge your batteries. So, how can you become more comfortable with your thoughts and being alone? It's easy to overlook the importance of alone time and consider it dispensable. To make it a priority, schedule a date with yourself and mark it on your calendar. Let your loved ones know that you won't be available during that time. Once you've set aside your alone time, find activities that you enjoy doing on your own. Remember, watching TV, scrolling through social media or YouTube don't count. Instead, give yourself the space to self-reflect and explore your thoughts. You can take up journaling or try meditation and mindfulness practices to quiet your mind and find peace. Vanessa followed this advice and started practicing mindfulness and meditation in the evening. Gradually, her racing thoughts slowed down, and she was able to sleep soundly. Many people have an entitlement mentality, but strong people concentrate on giving rather than taking. Lucas was not well liked by his colleagues due to his tendency to act like a know-it-all, despite being fresh out of college. He often told his more experienced coworkers how he would do things and acted entitled to a leadership position. However, instead of promoting him, his boss advised him to tone it down, as his coworkers found him bossy and annoying. While it may seem like an uncommon problem, we all have a bit of entitlement in us, believing that the world owes us something. The issue is that the more we feel deserving of something, the less likely we are to earn it. Entitlement leads us to demand things instead of working towards them, and unrealistic expectations can turn people off from us. This behavior can cause others to avoid us if they feel we are only taking and not giving. To overcome feelings of entitlement, it is essential to become aware of them. Entitlement is often hidden in our thoughts and beliefs. Believing that we are exceptional, that we are above the law, or that life is unfair and we deserve better, all signs of entitlement. Instead, we should practice humility. We all have weaknesses and imperfections that make us human. Receiving critical feedback with humility can help us grow and improve. Lucas learned this lesson and changed his behavior, becoming more open to learning from his colleagues. With this new attitude, he may finally earn the promotion he desires. Mentally strong people recognize that achievements take time and that progress isn't always immediately apparent. If there's one weakness that Marcy had, it was her notorious impatience. When her kids or coworkers wouldn't comply with her pace, she'd say, "I'm not getting any younger." She'd read dozens of self-help books, but was disappointed when they didn't magically change her life overnight. She abandoned therapy just after a few sessions because she didn't see the immediate results that she wanted. What she was desperately looking for was a shortcut, a magic pill that would eliminate her dissatisfaction with life. Unfortunately, as mentally strong people know, this pill doesn't exist. In a world of 24-hour delivery, on-demand streaming and fast food, most people are used to getting what they want as quickly as possible. But if instant gratification becomes an overall expectation, you're gonna have some problems in your life. The hard truth is, change is hard and progress is not always immediately apparent. The question is how you handle this. If you're like Marcy, you might get discouraged easily and abandon your efforts prematurely. This means you'll never reap those special benefits that only come with a long-term commitment. Some things like an education, an important career step, or an artistic breakthrough only come after years of hard, unrewarding work and perseverance. The first step in embracing the long haul is to create realistic expectations. If you expect quick and painless success, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and frustration. Also, beware of fixed and unshakable deadlines for your goals. While it's good to have an approximate idea of when you would like to finish, making it an all-or-nothing situation can certainly backfire. And then practice perseverance. Try to abstain from instant gratification. More often say no to the cookie or the impulse online shopping. But no matter how self-disciplined you are, you will also need some moments of accomplishment. So try to create them yourself. Try to break down your big goal into smaller short-term objectives, and once you've reached them, celebrate. If you accomplish milestone after milestone, it's going to energize you for the overall journey. Final words. To increase your mental strength and get more out of life, you should 1. Refrain from feeling sorry for yourself. 2. Never give your power away to others. 3. Embrace change. 4. Avoid fretting about things you can't control. 5. Stop worrying about pleasing everyone. 6. Never be afraid of taking risks, but be clever about which risks you take. 7. Resist the urge to dwell on the past. 8. Make sure to never make the same mistake twice. 9. Never be resentful of other people's success. 10. Keep at it and never give up after an initial failure. 11. Face your fears of being alone and overcome them. 12. Be on your guard for feelings of entitlement. 13. Never expect immediate results and be patient. Thanks for being part of our insightful voyage. If our summary piqued your interest, we encourage you to dive into the complete book for a deeper understanding. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content if you're new here, and share it with others who might find it valuable. Keep on reading, discovering, and advancing until our next adventure.